Hello, welcome to our own channel, Curious Corners in Biology, where we discuss the curiosity aspect in the subject of biology and we dive deep into certain unanswered questions while one reads the literature or the text in biology. So, my approach to the channel, as usual, is to discuss questions from different topics in biology in a way that it induces inquisitiveness in learners of all ages, of all background. Okay, so today we will be continuing with respiratory physiology, and I have come up with few more questions from my book, Curious Corners in Biology. And yes, if you are an inquisitive learner, if you do have curiosity in the subject, and if you do want to know and develop scientific understanding, please visit Amazon and please look into for my book, Curious Corners in Biology, which is available in Amazon Kindle format. That's available on Amazon Kindle app. So let us start with today's topic. So you may be able to see the slide. The first question is, why is an internal location for gaseous exchange in tissues required for terrestrial animals? So this question says that the respiratory system is located internally in terrestrial animals. Why is it so? So if we observe invertebrates, then invertebrates would have no respiratory system for that matter. That means they will respire through skin. Plants will respire through leaf epidermis and lenticels of the stem. So that means gaseous exchange in lower animals or plants is occurring through surface. In case of animals, you can say outer respiratory surface or outer surface for gaseous exchange. But as animals evolved and vertebrates developed, then gills developed, and then finally lungs evolved. Now, these respiratory structures will make up the respiratory system, and that is present inside the body. Why so? First reason is terrestrial life arose from aquatic life. So, evolution occurred from water to land. So, definitely, terrestrial life would be more complex. So, complex structure and systems would be required to serve the purpose of physiology. So, when lungs are located inside the animal's body, first of all, these respiratory organs would be protected from any injury or trauma. Okay, and we also have rib cage surrounding the lungs. Then dehydration would not occur. If the respiratory surface is exposed to a drier environment, then dehydration would take place. Why is dehydration an issue? The cells would die if they are dehydrated. So dehydration should not occur on the respiratory surface, or the cells forming the respiratory surface would die, and then no gaseous exchange would take place. So dehydration does not occur when lungs are inside the body. Then it is very easy to maintain a stable internal environment, which is also homeostasis. Okay. And lungs are also specialized organs. They are highly folded and they are differentiated into alveoli, which are air-filled sacs. Such structural complexity is only possible when there is homeostasis and when organ is highly evolved. And when organ is highly evolved, it needs protection. So of course, this would also help the terrestrial animals to explore dry environments. They would have no problems. If the respiratory system was located outside the body, that means on the surface, then drier environments would not be colonized by terrestrial animals because the respiratory surface would go dry. So this is a reason that why internally the respiratory system is situated. The next question is that usually we observe that earthworms will come up the surface after heavy rains or during heavy rains. So during heavy rains, why would earthworms wriggle on the surface and why not they would keep themselves inside the burrow? That's very simple. Because rainfall causes waterlogging. Now, when waterlogging occurs, soil spaces will be filled by water instead of air. So, air is not available for gaseous exchange to earthworm. And we know that earthworm is an invertebrate and it respires through moist skin. So, it would require exposure to air. So, it would crawl up on the surface of land and breathe easily. So therefore we see earthworms coming to the surface during rainfall. Then let us discuss one more question, that suppose an injury occurs onto someone's chest, okay, in a way that chest cavity is ruptured, some kind of trauma occurs, and a small hole in membrane surrounding lungs is developed. Then what effect should one expect? So this condition is called as pneumothorax. As you can see in this diagram, lungs are covered by what is called as pleural membrane. Pleural membrane connects lungs to the chest cavity. So pleural membrane is present on the surface of lungs, and anatomically pleural membrane is the outer pleural membrane, that is the parietal pleura, and then there is inner pleural membrane which is called as visceral pleura. Now between the two pleural membranes is present pleural space or pleural cavity. Now this usually is filled with pleural fluid. Now, if there is any injury, then air would creep in the pleural space or pleural cavity. So, what happens is the lung is going to collapse. That means it is shrinking, it is squeezing in, it is collapsing, and the pleural space is getting filled with air. So, acute chest pain, severe chest pain on the side of the chest which is affected would occur, and this is also accompanied by shortness of breath. This condition is called as pneumothorax. Okay. Then this is a very interesting question, that why myoglobin binds with more amount of oxygen than hemoglobin. Okay. Now let us understand the basics first. Myoglobin is a respiratory protein and so is hemoglobin. Both are present in humans. Hemoglobin is present or packed into RBCs and myoglobin is mainly present in muscles. But both the proteins are different in structure. Number one, how are they different in structure? So as you can see in this diagram, myoglobin is a single unit structure. That means it is made up of single polypeptide chain. So it is called monomeric. Hemoglobin, contrarily, is made up of four polypeptides. That is two alpha polypeptide chain and two beta polypeptide chain. So that means this is a tetrameric protein. So of course, the structure of hemoglobin is more complex than myoglobin. Then the other difference is the function of hemoglobin is to bind with oxygen and deliver the oxygen into the tissues. Now, when a protein binds with oxygen, it should have affinity. And then it should also have a characteristic or property which helps the oxygen to dissociate, to help oxygen get into the tissues. So, hemoglobin can do so due to presence of 2,3-diphosphoglycerate, which is a molecule present in RBCs that allows oxygen to be dissociated from hemoglobin in order for the oxygen to reach into tissues. Now, myoglobin has a different function. It is capable more so of storing oxygen. It is like a vault. It is like a reservoir storing oxygen. And its structure is monomeric due to single polypeptide chain. Myoglobin cannot deliver oxygen anywhere. It stores oxygen. So, here, myoglobin can also capture oxygen from hemoglobin because blood supply occurs to muscles. Okay. And this oxygen can be stored by myoglobin. Okay. Myoglobin can also perform its function of capturing oxygen at low partial pressure of oxygen. So this makes myoglobin have more affinity towards oxygen as compared to hemoglobin. So we can say that myoglobin has much more affinity for oxygen as compared to hemoglobin, and it binds oxygen more tightly as compared to hemoglobin. Okay. So due to this function, the oxygen curve, okay, the curve showing saturation of hemoglobin and myoglobin with oxygen is different for hemoglobin and myoglobin. So as you can see, for hemoglobin, the curve is sigmoidal. And for myoglobin, the curve is hyperbolic. This is because at once myoglobin can bind maximum oxygen. And hemoglobin, due to its tetrameric structure, what it does is it first binds an oxygen molecule, and then binding of other oxygen molecules, or we can say the remaining oxygen molecules, becomes easy. So one by one oxygen molecules would bind to hemoglobin, leading to a sigmoidal oxygen dissociation curve. We generally use the word oxygen dissociation more so for hemoglobin because in case of myoglobin, oxygen does not dissociate. So the oxygen curve for myoglobin is hyperbolic. At once, it quickly binds with oxygen and gets saturated. So this is why myoglobin can bind with more oxygen than hemoglobin. And one thing more is that myoglobin is also stabilized by a specialized histidine in its structure. Hemoglobin also has histidine amino acid in its structure, but its role in stability is not much understood. While in myoglobin, it stabilizes its conformation or its structure. Okay. So that much for today's discussion, and we will see you soon with more questions in respiratory physiology. If you are interested in such curious content, please visit the link in the description, which will redirect you to my book Curious Corners in Biology, available at Amazon Kindle. Till then, see you. Bye.